Hi, I'm Dorusinec. I work here on CSUN under physical plant management. I take care of the duck and turtle pond here at CSUN, which is located in the Orange Grove. So majority of the Orange Grove would be between Zelza and Lindley, following Nordoff Boulevard, south side of campus. Majority of the orange trees there are Valencia oranges variety, although you can still spot a few Old Naval varieties hidden within the grove. But majority of them will be Valencia oranges. Most of the fruit trees we do have are from grafts, and we try to maintain with mulching, irrigation, and making observations on the trees, making sure they have enough water, they don't have any diseases, and maintain pruning. And periodically we will have volunteers collecting a bunch of other orange fruits and distributing it either through the pantry on campus and a few other organizations. Yeah. So biodiversity in the Orange Grove, starting with where we have a majority of the orange trees, we do have plenty of foxtail squirrels, which they always show up to the pond, and they usually tear up the weed covers for nesting purposes, and they also they unintentionally peel the oranges for the ducks. We do have both native and domestic duck breeds at the pond, and they actually do eat the oranges. They can't peel the oranges, but they can eat the oranges, and occasionally as a squirrel chews on orange fruit, they'll leave it there, and the ducks take full advantage at eating them. And a few other species we can observe at the pond would be, we have crows, ravens, several varieties of bird of prey, mainly red-tailed hawks, Cooper hawks, and occasionally red shoulder hawks. Since we also have the pond, closer to the pond, you'll definitely observe more wildlife, including on occasion you'll find the great blue heron, the great white egret, snowy egret, green heron, double-crested cormorants, and on occasion, very rarely, Canadian geese will make an appearance. And as for fish, we do have a majority of mosquito fish, which are under the genus Gambusia, western mosquito fish. Fun fact about mosquito fish is their main diet consists of mostly mosquito larvae. And vector control used to give out mosquito fish to people's homes if you had stagnant water, because they'll eat mosquito larvae, in turn reducing the mosquito population. So they're excellent mosquito control. We've also introduced blue tilapia, which are really great at algae eating, and they also help filter feed. So they'll drink up the green water, which is basically phytoplankton, as a soup. And existing fish we do have about 7 butterfly koi, 2 jumbo-sized carp, and which would be the largest fish we have. And occasionally, sometimes I did pull out some fish out of the pond, since sometimes people do drop off like abandoned pets. I pulled out a largemouth bass from the pond before, goldfish, and even pet store bought fish on occasion. And besides the fish, we do have good population of insects that show up to the pond, mainly many varieties of dragonflies, damselflies, midge flies, and mayflies, which all require water to reproduce. Let's see what else. As for plants, in the pond, we do have pretty good diversity of plants, especially in the stream. The stream, you'll find a lot more biodiversity than you would in the actual pond itself, mainly because we do have a large population of red-eared slider turtles in the pond. Red-eared sliders are extremely invasive, and they eat just about most things they can get a hold of. So when it comes to introducing more biodiversity, it becomes a bit challenging, just because red-eared sliders would more than likely go after it, including plants and small animals. So in the stream, since there's less turtles, I've been more successful adding more biodiversity in streams, such as different varieties of plants, a few California native plants, including pennywort, monkey flower, cardinal flower. We also have cattails, and a few other plants we are utilizing for mostly as a form of bio and phytoremediation, just to clean up the wastewater, including we do have canna lilies. The main reason we are utilizing canna lilies is they're probably top three. They're top three in plants that can uptake phosphates from the water. And then we also are using a lot of water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is probably the #1 plant used for filtration and wastewater treatment. They uptake a lot of nutrients, including heavy metals and elements like arsenic out of the water, and they provide a lot of habitat for microfauna. So with the citrus trees in the grove, there's a few ways to identify a healthy citrus tree versus unhealthy citrus tree. At first glance, you can tell if it's unhealthy, if you're noticing any dying or dried out branches, especially if you chip away at the bark and it's completely dry. It means you have a dead branch. There are some diseases that do affect the citruses, and the grove is no exception. So we try to stick with varieties that are more disease resistant and hardy for that case. A few things to also notice is for the citrus trees, majority of these fruit trees are root grafted. So one way to tell whether you have a legitimate fruit tree versus root suckers from the root graft is you'll notice with the root suckers, they'll be a lot thinner. The leaves will be much more narrow, and they'll have a lot more thorns than normal citrus, a lot more elongated thorns. Also, the fruits tend to be much smaller, much sour, and they tend to produce a lot of tiny yellow looking oranges, and they do tend to drop a lot of oranges as well. And you'll notice at the base where the trunk, instead of seeing one solid single trunk, you'll notice multiples, which are just matured root suckers that matured and taken away the energy from the original fruit tree that was grafted onto it. So that's one way you could tell between a regular fruit that's been grafted on versus a root sucker, which usually gives you sour oranges and takes away energy from the main fruit tree. So red ear sliders, they're invasive, and over at the CSUN duck pond, we have about over 400 turtles, more or less. We have not introduced a single turtle to the pond. Every single turtle there is an abandoned pet, unfortunately. The turtles do breed, however, but if the hatchlings don't make their way to the stream, they don't really have a chance of survival, only because since we do have a high population of turtles, they can be cannibalistic. So larger turtles will eat hatchling turtles. They're opportunistic, and they don't just hunt younger turtles. They also go after smaller fish. So if you decide to introduce coal or goldfish, they have to be at least about the length of the turtle to have a good chance, and then maybe even a lot larger just to have a chance against the birds that prey on fish. Speaking about the birds, we do have native mallards at the pond. They do nest, but however their behavior has changed this season. Before they started looking for nests of mallards, the smart ones took off flew away from campus to find nests elsewhere. The ones that were unfortunate to do that and ended up making nests here at the duck pond, they don't really have a high survival rate. Typically, ducklings don't last more than a day or two at the CSUN duck pond, because we do have a high population of red ear slider turtles. As soon as the ducklings hit the water, they're up for grabs when it comes to the turtles being hungry. And it's very unfortunate to see invasive species feed on a native waterfowl, but occasionally when you have overpopulation of a species, things like that tend to happen. So between mid-March to late August, it's turtle breeding season. The female turtles start leaving the pond as early as sunrise, and they venture pretty far. Dig out a nest with their back feet and deposit a couple eggs, and then they return to the pond. Unfortunately, sometimes these turtles go a little too far away from the pond, where they start crossing the street, getting on the sidewalks, and we have been putting up a fence along to prevent them from crossing the streets and getting too far. And if you ever find a turtle that's wandered way too far from the pond and is at risk of getting ran over or in danger, you could contact PPM or myself to retrieve the turtle, or if need be, you could pick up the turtle. Just careful with its mouth, especially if the turtle hisses. It's probably more inclined to bite. And another thing is, you probably would ideally hold the turtle away from your body, because sometimes when the turtle gets scared, sometimes it might urinate. And besides that, just try to make sure the turtles don't go into any harm's way. So here at CSUN at the Duck and Turtle Pond, there are two biology research happening